Alright, so we're just about ready now to take a look at some chords, yeah? And try and get started on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a series of chords and I'll talk you through each one. Okay, now the first chord that we're going to look at is a C chord. And we play that by using, remember like I said, is you use the tips of your fingers as well, okay? So we're going to use the first finger to play the second string of the first fret, and then we're going to use our second finger to play the fourth string on the second fret. And then we're going to use our third finger to play the fifth string on the third fret. Now, if you look at my fingers there, you'll see that each finger is quite close to the fret, the kind of metal part of the fret there, yeah? So the first finger is kind of not touching, it's important not to touch like we've mentioned there, and then the second finger, as I say, is again close, yeah? So you get the idea, they're all close. And then when we play a C chord, we don't play the top note here. We just go from the next one down, the fifth string, the A string, and we play, okay? And you want a nice clear sound. Now, as I've mentioned, if you're too flat like this, you're not going to get much, okay? So rotate that wrist and check that none of your fingers are kind of accidentally touching other strings. That's the important thing, okay? You've kind of got the tools to figure out now how to get a nice clear sound when you play a chord, okay? So this is a C chord, as I've mentioned. So just play that a few times with me. After 4, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so that should be nice and clear, as we've mentioned, and that's a relatively straightforward chord, and it's a C major chord. Now, when I'm referring to chords, if I just say a C or a G or a D, then it also means a major chord, okay? So just so you know for future reference. Now, the next chord that we're going to look at is an F chord. Now, this is slightly more difficult in as much as our first finger is going to try and play two notes, those first two strings on the first fret, yeah? So the E and the B, or the first and the second, these two. Okay, so first of all, what you want to do is try and get those sounding nice and clear, like so. Then we add the second finger to the third string on the second fret, and then just play the bottom three strings, and they should sound like that. Okay, and then your little finger and your third finger play the fourth and the fifth on the third fret. So now we have, okay? Now you may find that a bit of a challenge, okay, because we're using all our fingers there. Now, if you do find that a challenge, take these two off and use your third finger just to play the fourth string on the third fret, and then just play the bottom four strings, like so. It's slightly easier. So maybe you want to start out playing the F like that, and then when you get a bit confident, try adding the two notes. So you start at the fifth string, like so. Alright, so start with this shape until you're comfortable, and then add the other notes to make it like a fuller F chord. So we have a C and an F, and the next chord we're going to look at is a G. Now typically when people learn a G, they learn this shape. Okay, I tend to play a G that way, which is slightly different, and the reason being that if you play a G like that, it's slightly easier to go back to a C. Whereas if you're like that, going back to a C is more of a challenge. And these things are important when you're starting out, okay? You want the easiest way of doing things and just gradually get yourself into it. Okay, so with this G chord, we're going to use our first finger to play the fifth string of the second fret, and then we're going to use our second finger to play the 6th string on the 3rd fret, and then this 3rd finger goes on the 1st string of the 3rd fret. Now it's quite easy if you're not paying attention with this to get a kind of not a full sound, and that is because it's quite easy for your fingers to lean onto other strings, okay? So this 2nd, 3rd and 4th strings are open, okay? So it's important that they sound nice and clear, yeah? So when you play this chord, it should sound like this. Okay, now as I've already mentioned, if you're having troubles, just play each note at a time. So you can identify where things are going wrong if they're going wrong, okay? So, let's play that G together, as I say. This way, if you'd like to play it like me, you're going to use your 2nd finger on the 5th string of the 2nd fret. You're going to use this 3rd finger on the 6th string of the 3rd fret, and then your little pinky on the 1st string of the 3rd fret. So that's kind of my way of playing the G, really. Well, not my way, but another way, an alternative way. Okay? If you'd like to do it that way. I suggest that you do, because as I say, going into the C or a G7 is easier. Okay, there are reasons for this. Obviously, I'm not just, you know. So far we have a C, an F, and a G. And they're all major chords. And to finish with, we're going to play a minor chord, and it's an A minor chord. Okay? And we do that by using our 1st finger to play the 2nd string on the 1st fret, and our 2nd and 3rd fingers play the 3rd and 4th strings on the 2nd fret. And again, we don't play the top note. We don't play that for an A minor. We start on the next note down, which is an A, which makes sense if you think about it, because it's an A minor. So we start on the A and we play. Okay, A minor. So let's play that together after 4, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there we have 4 chords, and all of those chords are related, which I will explain to you in a while, okay? But the reason I've shown you those 4 chords is because they all belong to the same kind of family, and they work together very well. Okay, they're not going to sound out of place when you play them. Now, obviously the first step is to get all your chords sounding nice and clear. So your C sounds like that, your F nice and clear, your G, and your A minor. Okay, now that is obviously the first step, as I've mentioned. You want to get all those chords sounding nice and clearly. And then it shouldn't take you too long to do that. It's a relatively quick process if you dedicate a little bit of time to practice that on a daily basis. You'll find it's kind of relatively easy. Now, when you are practicing the chords, it's very, very important to count to yourself. If we get into this habit nice and early, it's going to serve you really, really well, because it's very fundamental and important. Okay, so even if it's just going 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's just very important to count 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So whenever you're practicing these chords, as I say, make sure that you count to yourself. Or if you find it easier, then you could tap your foot or something like that. Some people find that a good way to go. Because as well as learning these chords, we want to learn something about timing, because without the timing, it just sounds a mess. Okay? Now, once we have that sorted out and you're happy with how they sound, what we need to do next is to be able to change from one chord to another. Now, this is where things can be a little bit of a challenge, but they needn't be. If you just take it slowly and you take your time and you count as I've explained, then you will get into this changing scenario of chords, right? Now, I'd like to give you some tips if I can. I mean, essentially what it boils down to is practice, yeah? I mean, that is ultimately what's going to get you there. Nothing really much people can tell you that's going to, you know, get you there quicker, if you like. Just things to be aware of. So, I would suggest you start slowly by going, say, now what we're going to do is we're going to change from a C to an F. Just a C to an F and back to a C and back to an F. So if we count in fours, okay, and we play each chord twice within that 4 count, for example like this, we'll play on the 1 and the 3. 1, 2, 3, 4 to F, 2, 3, 4 to C, 2, 3, 4 to F, 2, 3, 4 and back to C. Now it's important when you're doing this to think ahead and not to leave it to the very last moment before making your change, because if you do, you're guaranteed to be late getting there. Okay, so when we're playing this 1, 2, 3, once I've played that final C on the 3, I'm already thinking about getting to that F. Okay, it's important to be switched on in that way. Alright, so we have a 1, 2, 3, I'm thinking for 1 to the F, 2, 3, I'm thinking about the C again, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. So that kind of idea. Now that's just going between the C and the F. Okay, now we'll put the G into the equation. So we have C, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, and C, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Now, you may find it a challenge. Don't be surprised if you do. That's fine, and that's all very normal, okay? As I've said, it's just practice, and your first time around, it's going to obviously be difficult because your hands may not have done this type of thing before. Okay, so that's 3 of the chords that we've looked at. 3, I should say. Now we're going to take a look at the final chord, which is the A minor chord, and we're going to add that in as well, okay? So, we have the C, F, G, and now the A minor. Okay, and we'll do the same counting. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, A minor, 2, 3, 4, and C, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, A minor, 2, 3, 4. Okay? Now what I would suggest you do is, now that you have a knowledge of those 4 chords, okay, is to practice changing into those chords. It doesn't have to be in that order. I want you to mix it up. So it may be C, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, F, 2, 3, 4, A minor, 2, 3, 4, it might be back to F, 2, 3, 4, G, 2, 3, 4, A minor, 2, 3, 4, and C, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so in other words, I want you to mix it up as much as you can, because the important thing here is to just try and get familiar with changing throughout all of those chords in various kind of order, if you like. Okay, so I would suggest that you spend a little bit of time on a daily basis doing that, going through those 4 chords, mixing them around until you feel comfortable. Yeah, now obviously we're just doing something very basic with our right hand, okay, because we can't really think of anything more complex whilst we're getting into this new idea, but we'll be working on this right hand more to make it sound a little bit more interesting as the course progresses. Okay, so good luck with that. As I say, if you stick to those kind of rules and things, it won't be too long before you're finding those changes get a little bit easier. So I'll see you shortly for the next chapter.